Welcome to the Grande Bouffe,
The Big Feast.
with myself, Cole Smithey, and my co-host, Mike Lacy. As always, we are here to copiously consume international politics and culture through the prism of a single film and a different craft beer every week.
I like this movie a lot, and I like this beer pretty good. It's a pretty good beer.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about this beer in the context of this movie.
It's a good pairing. It's not a direct.
No, it's
not a direct relationship. It's a good pairing.
It's a link because the Tenant is considered the third and final installment of Polanski's Apartment trilogy, of which Repulsion was the first film with Catherine Deneuve, and Rosemary's Baby is the second, and The Tenant is the third. And so we are drinking Rosemary's Baby.
From Two Roads. That's the pun, right? That's the idea.
That's exactly it. 6.8 ABV, and it is seasonal. Let's see what they say about this delightfully
Definitely going for some
spicy beer.
Some pumpkin. They're saying it's pumpkin and spices. So I like when things are very specific, like the word spices. Aged in rum barrels, which is
rum barrels. Yeah,
that's a good process. I like that. It gives you
Yeah.
kind of a caramelly thing. You think that's about? You think am I crazy? And then vanilla beans.
It's scary good pumpkin ale. You know what I'm saying?
It's got a little R rating on it for rated R for rum barrels.
Nice. I really like the logo with the child's. What are those things called? Baby carriage.
You know, this one I want to call a pram.
Ah, it is a pram, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very similar to the famous poster that they made for Rosemary's Baby with the green pram.
I've been getting a little more into graphic design and like reading some books on it and stuff, because I find if you're doing anything in like the creative field of the like millennial Bushwick Brooklyn variety that I'm in, you just have to become a graphic designer. It's really annoying, like no matter what. I mean, it's essentially at this point, if you have an Instagram feed, you have to become a graphic designer. Don't look at my Instagram and expect it to be well kept or anything. But this is a great design in this bottle, I have to say. I really like it.
Yeah, somebody put some work into it.
It hits all these different notes really well, and it's I'm just talking about the bottle. Anyway.
But it's a tasty beer. It's got a little heat to it. This little kick.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Do you think it's the pumpkin, the vanilla, or the spices? The unnamed spices?
I don't know. Maybe it's the rum.
I think it might be. I think you might be right. I think it might be the rum. We've discussed these rum aged beers previously. You're like 2 or 3 years older than me, right, Cole? You might. Do you remember? Has this beer aged in rum barrels been around forever? I feel like I just saw them pop up.
I think that the rum barrel thing is fairly new. I know that
at least popularly.
The bourbon aged barrels has been around for a long time, but the rum I haven't seen that until now.
I think I saw one going the other way where they were like aging beer. They're aging bourbon in beer barrels. And I can only assume that beer itself was aged in bourbon barrels.
I don't know if that's true.
Very incestuous.
I don't know if that's true.
I think that you're just going to make this beer get the hemophilia eventually.
Two Roads Brewing Company out of Stratford, Connecticut.
Stratford, Connecticut. I don't know how far Stratford is. I would take a... I'm very enamored, I think possibly because of the graphic design by this brewery. I would take a road trip to Stratford.
Yeah. I was wondering how long it was going to take us to come around to a Polanski movie, and I was not going to be the one to pick it. I let Mike, Mike came up with the movie this week, and it just happened to be a Polanski movie, one of my all-time faves. So
I asked around. I crowdsourced to my friends who I trust. I asked my friends Emily and Dicey, and I think they might have both recommended this. To me, my friend Dicey, who is a fantastic expert on horror movies, and she recently ran like a really great film festival in Nashville called Defy Film Festival. And
What is it called?
it's called Defy.
Defy. Okay.
The Defy Film Festival.
Okay.
DEFY.
Got it.
It was her first year. It was fantastic. And she first recommended The Apartment. And I said, The Apartment? And I was
That's a
like,
great movie,
I
too.
had asked you about horror movies. And I looked it up to make sure it was like the Jack Lemmon movie I was remembering. And I'm like, no one ever told me this was a horror movie.
Right.
And in my head, this version of The Apartment as a horror movie just blossomed, and it seems like a great idea. And then she meant, I meant The Tenant by Polanski.
But this is a psychological thriller. Just to split hairs. This is
I don't think
this is not a horror film.
I don't think she
If
would.
you go in
she
looking-
would make
expecting-
I want to
expecting a
defend
horror
Dicey. I
movie.
don't think she'd make the mistake either.
Yeah.
But I would love to talk about the line and why it's important to draw the distinction in genre with this movie.
I think it has to do with what you expect of a movie when you go see something. If you want to go see a horror movie, you want to go see a horror movie.
What year did this movie come out?
1976.
1976. Rocky wins Best Picture, I believe. The bicentennial.
That sounds right. And Taxi Driver had come out, I think, in 74. So that was just a little bit before this.
So, horror movies existed in mostly the...
No, actually, you know what? Taxi Driver came out the same year.
76.
Yeah.
So horror movies existed in like a B grade variety, right? I don't think you had these sort of more respectable horror movies, any that I can think of, really, right?
Right.
And so you're going to have a movie like this exist in a more mainstream realm as a thriller. Like Polanski, at this point, he's not making horror, though. Maybe people consider Rosemary's Baby maybe horror,
Yeah,
but...
well, Rosemary's Baby is a horror film, and I would say that even though Repulsion is a psychological thriller like this one, it delves into the realm of horror a little more, if not because of the grand guignol aspects of Catherine Deneuve and this dead rabbit that she lugs around with her. But just to...
I got a couple of those words.
The dead rabbit?
Yeah. I saw Fatal Attraction recently. I tell you that, that's an amazing movie. All right, tangent over, but
Yeah,
go see Fatal
yeah.
Attraction.
Well,
It holds up.
Yeah, well, we wanted to do Alison McLean's Crush, but we couldn't come up with a version of it that we could get in a quick enough.
If you're
amount of
sitting
time.
on a copy of Crush out there, throw it up on iTunes.
Yeah, well,
That's the one place I didn't look.
or
but
just send it over to us. Just lend it to us, and we'll watch it and send it back.
if you're Alison McLean,
Yeah, and I just saw her last week at the New York Film Festival. I should have asked her.
are you carrying around screeners of all your movies?
you
Because
by
if so,
chance
we have a
could,
podcast and we
or
need
could
some
you-
help finding
Yeah.
some stuff to watch.
All right, so just to lay it out where we're at in Polanski's career thus far, Knife in the Water was his first feature, which is an incredible movie. And then he based on that film, he got the money to make Repulsion, which was really his first feature. And then he did Cul-de-sac, The Fearless Vampire Killers, for which he met Sharon Tate. And then, interesting. And so then he made Rosemary's Baby. I think he made Rosemary's Baby in '68. Interesting. So he made Rosemary's Baby before Sharon Tate died.
Mm-hmm.
She was murdered by Charles Manson, or his gang at least. And then he made Macbeth. And then he did an uncredited stint on a racing movie called Weekend of a Champion. And then What, which is a strange...
What?
It's just called
WHAT.
What. Yeah. And then Chinatown, which was a huge Hollywood hit. And this is his follow-up to Chinatown. It's based on a novel, so he's, he really kind of lucked out, I think, with the source material. I think it was a happy accident that it kind of fits into his apartment motif. And I would argue that he's made two other films that fit into the apartment motif because clearly The Pianist falls into that, and I think that Ghost Rider also falls into
Ghost
that.
Rider, I've seen. Yeah. Yeah, I've probably seen half of his movies now that you laid them all out there. Well,
I haven't.
That's not all of them.
No,
all,
no,
all
no.
the ones you've mentioned.
Yeah, Bitter Moon, really hilarious, really great, and his movie Tess with Nastasia Kinski is probably the best period drama literary adaptation I think I've ever seen.
So how much had he acted? Do you know? Because this is
Well, he acted in The Fearless Vampire Killers.
okay.
And let's see, did he act in any of his other movies before this?
Because we had a long streak of films that were directed and starring. There were, I'm sorry, the director starred in them. And then we seemed like we fell off that track for a while. I felt like we should
Right.
just dedicate our podcast to those. We did so many. It was like it's our version of IPAs. But
Right.
back in it with this, and he's one of the more interesting director actors. There's something about it that at this point in my life, I,
Well, he's so
certain things about him.
he's so perfectly positioned for this role because his character Trelkowski is a Polish, and it's even though it's not stated that he's Jewish, he is this immigrant living in Paris, and Polanski had recently moved to Paris when he made this movie, so he really was walking in those shoes.
You feel like he must have read this novel and been like, oh, it's exactly what I want to do is just put on a dress and jump out a window. Like that's
Well, there's so much more to it. I mean, I think that there's this movie's about a lot of things. I think it's about anti-Semitism. I think you can draw corollaries about just the refugee experience.
Certainly explicitly xenophobia, but like I think you have to like read the anti-Semitism into it most likely.
When he gets this apartment, we'll talk in a minute about how he gets this apartment. And by the way, there's going to be spoilers all through this thing. So if you haven't yet watched The Tenant, turn this thing off, go watch The Tenant, and then come back and hear the rest of this.
As much as I don't want to be like turn off our podcast, I really agree with that. Go watch this movie. It's incredibly enjoyable and
the less you know going in, the better. Better. You really don't want to know anything about it before you go in.
It's so funny because it's like if you watch Rosemary's Baby, I'm like I want more of this. It's like we got you.
Yeah.
No problem.
I want to beat up Roger Ebert. I know he's dead now. We can't really. It's not nice to say things about dead people, but he said
they don't complain.
Just
Twitter complaints.
So Ebert said of this film that it's not merely bad; it's an embarrassment. And to that, I say pretty much the same thing that because he dissed Mulholland Drive or Blue Velvet. Sorry, Blue Velvet. Roger Ebert was more of a celebrity than a real film critic, and this to me is like a perfect example of why. Because to call this movie not merely bad but an embarrassment, you just you gotta hand in your union card.
It almost makes me think that someone described this movie to you and you didn't really see it to give a review like that. Because on paper, it should not work at all. It sounds ludicrous.
Yeah.
Especially thinking that Roman Polanski, who, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, but like not a professionally trained actor or anything. Although who knows, maybe he started in some Polish acting school. I don't know. But certainly wasn't his main interest. Puts himself in a movie, and it is not just a little play yourself bit part. This isn't one of like when Woody does like a B character. This is a the role calls for kind of a tour de force, like psychological, unhappening.
Oh yeah, cross dressing. There's a lot of serious demands put on the actor. And all right, so let's just set it up a little bit. Polanski's character Trelkowski.
So let me get it. Tchaikovsky?
Sorry,
it's not.
Am I saying it wrong?
I don't know. I kept going. Did they say Tchaikovsky? That's my real question. Is it? It's not Tchaikovsky.
And what? Yeah, and his landlord asks him, just straight out asks him if it's Russian, and he says no, it's Polish. So he is playing a Polish. I think it's just a given that he's Jewish, even though there's no direct association that he's Jewish.
You certainly have that French xenophobia and
Trelkowski, Trelkowski.
I wonder.
I really like when he gets the apartment and he unpacks and he goes in and he has this tiny little suitcase and he opens up the suitcase and it is the suitcase of a refugee.
Yeah.
He opens it up and it's got like the little scrapbook and he's got the kind of stuff that you would take with you if you were leaving, if you're running away from your home country, and this is the stuff that you have.
Let's just
you have to put all of your worldly possessions in one tiny little suitcase.
I actually kind of want to dig into the question of whether the film is saying he's Jewish or not, because you'd think Polanski wouldn't shy away from it. And you wonder if it's a choice to make it slightly more universal, that that they don't explicitly say it.
Well, you know, I mean, the story with Polanski is that his parents were hauled off by the Germans when he was 5. They were taken off and killed in the camps, and he was on his own from the time he was 5. He was going through the countryside, being hid by whatever families would take him in. So, you know, nobody knows, you know, that experience like Polanski.
So I think, you know, in knowing his backstory as much as like having seen The Pianist and knowing that that's a like virtually semi autobiographical, it does seem like in 1976 it would be like it's some sort of choice to not say necessarily that he's Jewish, which I think in this movie's set in Paris, and he's dealing with the xenophobia specific to him being a foreigner. The police are asking for his papers, and they're very like stressed about that. And so, regardless if the character is Jewish or not, though, I think there's, you know, it's a parallel there for you to engage with, you know.
And pretty much everybody that he comes in contact with is either horrifically ugly.
Oh my god, that kid, that kid,
mean.
Was it Luxembourg Gardens? I'm not sure, but there's a kid by a pond, and he's like the grossest kid.
Oh, he is.
He did
the world a favor by slapping that kid.
Central casting really like made their frocks that day. That kid is hideous.
Yeah.
Oh man. Or they're hideous or
mean, really mean.
Or mean. Or I thought you were gonna say like some very pretty
even as
American looking,
even Isabella Johnny is so hidden behind her sunglasses and her hair and her costume.
She's very 1976 and like transparently like trying to do a look, and she's falling apart. Like she's very interesting.
Yeah, you can't really even get a good look at Isabella Johnny, which is, you know, it's kind of frustrating because she's so gorgeous, but you never get a good look at her. Shelley Winters, of course, is in the film as the concierge of the apartment house, and she's great. Shelley Winters, who is in Lolita, of course, Poseidon Adventure, just perfectly cast as an American expat running this Parisian apartment house. One thing that I have to say about the film that I hadn't realized, and I know that you watched a version. I'm curious about what your version was like.
I actually just watched a different version. You go ahead to say what you're going to say.
So I have the DVD that came out in 2002 or whatever from Paramount. There's no extras on it. It's got the trailer and the movie, and that's it. So what Polanski did was he dubbed the movie in 3 different languages, and he let whichever language the actors were most comfortable with, he let them speak in the dialogue.
That makes a lot of sense.
And then they went back and dubbed it all. So the whole movie is dubbed with the exception of Tchaikovsky. So what you end up with, it adds this. I was thinking about it because a lot of people have put down the movie because of this facet of it.
No, it's amazing.
But to me, it adds this alienating layer over the film, especially in scenes where he invites his friends from work over and they throw a party and they get a little too rowdy, and you can hear the way the voices are intermingling, and it sounds, you could really tell that the volume levels are off, and it's very stagnant.
Some people have reverb like they're in a church, and some people sound like they're in a sound studio.
Yeah.
So what language was he speaking? Is he speaking English?
So yeah, his intention was to make an English film. So this is, for all intents and purposes, you know, he went in, you know, knowing that he was going to do this using French, Italian, and English, but making the film as really a French movie.
And so some of the actors are Italian, so they were speaking Italian.
I think so.
Yeah, the version I had at first was exclusively in Italian. I didn't have the subtitle track for it. And so I just got it on Amazon and watched it there, and it was the totally American dubbed version. And I totally agree with that. It is continuing what is done very effective visually in alienating the hell out of Tchaikovsky and
Trelkovsky.
Say it again.
Trel, Trelkovsky.
Trelkovsky.
Yeah.
So let's get into the plot a little bit and try to like find some interesting parallels to his life, or like what we kind of get out of it.
So does he? What's his job? He works at is it a newspaper?
He's some kind of clerk. Like, is there anything more to say to it than that?
Yeah, I guess that's it.
It's not a bureaucrat, but he might as well be. Like, the movie makes it clear it doesn't matter what he does, but his coworkers are goofy and
they're really ugly. They got bad teeth. They're like British expats or living in France.
There's that one American guy who he hangs out with who just plays brass music.
Right. That brass band music is so horrific.
And he's like
terrible.
He looks like he's like one of the like captains from Lawrence of Arabia, but like worse because he's American.
McHale's Navy or something.
Yeah, exactly. So he's just some sort of clerk that works with these jerks, but he's real uptight. He's real with this movie, rings very true in the New York City current housing economy, where getting an apartment is something to be very excited about and something you're very nervous about, and you're willing to take on some terms you don't really mean.
Yeah. So he goes in. He knows, somehow he's heard that the woman who lived in this apartment has died. Simone Schul is her name. And she has attempted...
Schul is a word for temple, is what I thought about this whole time. Like, every time he said Schul, it sounded like he was talking about temple.
Okay.
And,
Well, see, there you go. There's another...
I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And she is an Egyptologist.
That's right, which eventually comes up,
That's her job. And we see some little mummy-ish things that happen because, as it turns out...
I didn't think about that. Yeah,
as it turns out, Simone has not yet perished. She has jumped out of the window into the courtyard of this building and is in the hospital in traction, and she's wrapped up like a mummy. And when Trelkovsky goes to try and secure the apartment, he has this very polite way of broaching black market things, as when he gives Shelley Winters' concierge character some money. It's only normal. It's only proper. Is what
for
he
your
says.
Trouble.
And he puts the bill on the table, so he doesn't really hand it to her. He just sets it down. She doesn't say thank you. She doesn't acknowledge the money. She just sets a glass on top of it. Anyway, he goes to see the apartment, and then he soon thereafter goes to visit Simone Schul in the hospital, and that's where she's in traction. And this is where he meets her friend, Stella. And I think that, also interesting in the way that this movie is set up, it almost has this theatrical visual approach, similar to Rosemary's Baby, also similar to Streetcar Named Desire, where you're seeing the outside of the walls, and you're really getting already before the credits roll, or while the credits roll, and there's Stella.
Her name is Stella. Yeah, there's something about Trelkovsky which makes me feel very trusting in this character, and I also had this thought, and I don't think it's because of like Rosemary's Baby. I was like, is this guy the devil?
No, he's the opposite of the devil.
But there's something in my experience of watching this which made me think that there was going to be a big twist where everyone really shouldn't trust him. And maybe they when you get to the end, maybe it'll be like, but because who is this guy that knows this tragic thing that this woman tried to kill herself and shows up? And this is kind of the act that he does, is whether it's out of need or out of some like, it's a hard argument to say it's out of sadism, but there's something like very dark about him, or at least other people projected onto him.
This is old school New York. This used to go on all the time. I don't know if people used to look at the obits, and that's how they would get at their apartment. So this is nothing new.
So it's about that act. Like, this movie is about that act of doing that.
See, I don't think that's it at all.
I mean, it starts with that. It's like
it's more about what society expects of you, because when he goes into the negotiation with Mr. Z.
Who is the most like my grandfather, like I've seen any character.
Mr. Z is
in a movie.
intimidating. Monsieur Z, played by Melvin Douglas, and so there's a 5,000 franc premium that he has to pay in addition to the 600 francs a month that this apartment cost.
This is a fancy way of saying first month's last month, or is that just straight up like bribery?
That's straight up bribery. And this apartment is nothing special. It's one room studio.
Full of the not dead lady's stuff for one thing.
It's still got that, but the negotiation that goes on with Monsieur Z, Trelkovsky offers him. He finds out that it's 5,000 franc premium, and he says, "Wouldn't it be better if I gave you 4,000 in cash, and you don't have to declare any of it?" And Monsieur Z says, "Well, it would be better if it was $5,000 in cash." And you never know exactly how much he pays for it, but there's all of these encounters that he has that tell him what his neighbors expect of him and what his immediate society expects of him. And I think that is a lot to do with this film. He can't bring any women to his apartment. He's a bachelor. He can't bring any women to his apartment.
Well,
I mean,
yeah. So there is a very like Rosemary's Baby-ish seeming thing going where there's something obviously very cultish about these people. Their rules seem extraordinarily
and as
high.
there is with any society.
Right. So I guess the thing that I'm driving is there, as he believes, is there a supernaturally crazy level of rules that they're applying, or is he just chafing against what are the annoying, illogical rules that you run into in any place? Like is this an exceptionally bad? Is the story this normal guy moved into this crazy place, or, and I think it's more what I'm about to say is, every place is a crazy place, and rules are bizarre, and they'll drive you insane.
Right. I think it's a little closer to that. He is a thin-skinned guy, and he's kind of shy, and
he's what they used to call a neurotic, right?
Yeah.
And I'm still not really sure what they mean by that. I'm sure I would get it, but it's like almost. It'd be a character in a movie that like you can see thinking and like dealing with things. He's a neurotic, and he's very much driven kind of crazy by, trying to fit in these rules. I think this is getting at what you're saying is there are certain rules I think that he's trying to follow, being at work and being civil, and he's inviting them over for a good time, and then in a bit of like a dramatic way, that does not work for the way he must behave in his apartment. And you have a sense of this guy is coming with very little baggage. He has little identity of his own and is just looking at these two worlds that are conflicting. And he's like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Like, do I be a cool coworker? Or do I never be loud after midnight on a Saturday?
And I also think he has sexual issues. So Isabella Johnny plays Stella, meets her. She's the friend of Simone Schul. He ends up taking her to a movie, also a corollary with Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
In this case, the movie that they go see is Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon.
I thought it was Enter the Dragon,
which is really funny because they're sitting there watching the scene where Bruce Lee is just going cat wild.
It made me really want to go back and watch a bunch of Bruce Lee. We should do some Bruce Lee soon.
I love it. So, Fist of Fury was the first rated R movie that I ever saw. I was 11 years old, and I had to go out in the I had to go in the lobby and vomit.
Wow.
Yeah, when they were cutting the bodies that were hidden in the middle of the ice because they were smuggling the heroin in the ice, but they put bodies in there and they ran them on the buzz.
The first R movie I saw, it wasn't in theaters, but the first R movie I saw was Patriot Games because I'm 7 years old.
Okay, I remember. I think I reviewed that movie.
Yeah, for like a major newspaper or something. Yeah, not for your little like homemade typewriter paper.
Yeah,
like something real. And
then I think Exorcist was the second.
So
second horror movie my dad took me to.
Oh yeah, that was my mom's first. She was in a her parents went on a date, I guess, but brought the kids in the back at the drive-in and were like, go to sleep. You know, they're probably like take a sip of beer and go to sleep. My mom wakes up and and
Wow.
Bad
dreams
and
coming.
she's never been a fan of being stabbed to death since.
Yeah.
She's a big
Anyway, you're talking about Psycho.
Oh, what did you say?
Exorcist.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm
that's
talking
all right.
about Psycho.
That's okay. That's all right. So anyway, so Tarkovsky's a little impotent. Stella is
He's just got vodka dick.
Stella's going for it. She's got her hands all in his junk in the movie theater while they're watching Enter the Dragon, and then they come out of the cinema and he says, "Okay, well, that was fun. I'll see you around sometime." Because
he asked her to a drink. He said, "Do you want to get a drink?" And she said, "No."
But he's not really trying to follow up. I mean, I don't know. It's not how I would have played my cards.
It's a real weird date they're on. Her friend just tried to kill herself and is in a full body mummy cast.
And evidently, Mama needs some.
She's she's got kind of that like PTSD like
she needs it. And she doesn't get it.
She needs some of that PTSD. And
then the next time they finally get in bed together, because she puts the move on him once more, and all he can do is talk about, if my arm was cut off, would it be my arm? If it was my head, and is it my head or my body if you cut my head off?
I should have looked it up. That's a famous paradox that Aristotle brings up, is if you replace a plank on a ship one at a time and you replace them all, it's at the same ship. And so on one hand, I'm like, Tarkovsky, like I get what you're saying, man. Like you take off your arm, it's like me and my arm. You take off both arms, me and my arms. But then you take off your head, is it me and my head or me and my body? Like why does my head get to claim?
And see, and there's obviously a double entendre there, because she's trying to give him a blowjob while that's all going on. So there's a real
he's
blatant double entendre there.
So I think there is something being said about him being like they would say, like a neurotic. He's stuck in his head. And if there is the thing about impotency that's more than just like he drank too much, it's that he's frightfully concerned intellectually about things, and he's going mad.
Well, he's seeking transformation, and there's if you look this movie up on Wikipedia, there's a whole thing about the Kafka influence in this film.
I can see that, yeah.
And so I think that that's part of it. Is he's an immigrant who's trying to assimilate.
Yes.
And
he's doing his best. He's trying to keep his papers up to date. He's searching for the rules for it, and France is notoriously a hard place to do that. And it's also, he's dealing with a lot of expats. He's not like it's very confusing to me of who is French and who is not.
Well, the guys at the cafe that always push the Marlboros on him because that's what Simone Schul smoked. Those guys are all French.
But there's an interesting amount of expats, which I think goes to the point of like there's something extra alien about him. It's not that he's not from France. Well, because this is what comes up a lot. It's like, so you're not French, and he's like, I am a French citizen.
Right.
He almost doesn't understand.
Yeah, that comes up a few times.
So like I do think that you're right that it is something about him being Jewish. It is something about him being Eastern European that makes him extra foreign to these people, and at least to himself. And that it's
and he has it coming at him from all sides, because anything that he does, he's got the neighbors below him. That's Monsieur Z lives right beneath him,
right.
And then the neighbors I think above him are giving him a hard time. And then there's this older woman with a debilitated daughter. She's got something wrong with her leg, and the neighbors have gotten a petition to try and get rid of them.
Oh, but it's so perfectly like bizarre, because it's a petition. It's like it's her and her son, and he's like, I believe it's a daughter, and it's like, no, it's a son, and it's like he's like, I'm not gonna send her petition. Are we talking about the same person? And it's like, well, who do you think you are?
Yeah,
and it's a Roman Polanski movie. You're really not sure what direction it's gonna go, and halfway through, I was like, all right, well, this is going to be a blood sacrifice cult. They're going to be burying kids in the courtyard.
Did you really think that?
I had no idea. Like, in it could go at the halfway mark. This movie is 50-50 either way. That this is like a supernatural, like hellscape that he's moved into, or he's going insane. And I think the movie did the more interesting thing, especially in the light of Rosemary's Baby.
Well, it's based on a novel, so
Well, yeah,
it's a
but it's
story.
like, you know, he's
But there's-
he's gonna do it. He's gonna make the movie he wants to make, and he's gonna change it, or he's gonna not make a
But
novel.
the
That's not
sexual
compelling
politics
to
are
him.
important. You know, when we find when he's talking to Stella about Simone
Simone
Schul,
Schul.
and we find out that Simone Schul wasn't really into men, and then he ends up meeting this paramour who was never able to express his feelings, and they hang out for a night, and
Yeah,
of
women's lib
drinking.
is being discussed in the background of the conversation too. Like it's sort of like the conversation that like his friends are having. So we're in the context of
70s politics,
of
early
70s politics.
mid 70s post Watergate politics.
Yeah, and it's you know you have this foreigner who's thrown into all of these changes trying to figure it out, and you know, and like I do think that's really interesting when he's hanging out with that other paramour who, you know, it's interesting. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that guy up. He's the only other real outsider in this movie. Like they're at a bar and these drunk guys come in and they're shouting and they're making a scene, and one of them is like, all right, all right, all right, like
Drinks for everyone.
drinks for everyone. And then he comes over and he walks past Polanski and he points at this other guy's, except for him.
Yeah, it's the one time when Tchaikovsky doesn't get the short straw, but he kind of
What do you-
does
what
because
do
he's
you-
with the guy.
What do you make of that? Like, why is like, you know, where did they? Oh, I remember when they part. They part at the subway.
Yeah,
The guy gives him. It's a kiss on the lips, kind of.
no, it's on the cheek.
It's on the cheek.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a little more than bros
yeah.
would do.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah.
And the guy, and he says, "Thanks for saving my life."
And then he almost falls down the
falls
stairs.
to his death.
Yes,
Yeah.
falls down the stairs. But every social interaction that Tchaikovsky has is uncomfortable. He doesn't even with Stella. Everything that he has, you know, this is what we're getting at is where the movie shifts. Because to me, where the movie shifts is after his apartment is robbed.
Yes. Yes.
That to me is, you know, because here's a person who already has nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and he's being oppressed by his neighbors in this crummy
And
apartment.
he's so happy to get it. I want to bring up. He does a little dance when he gets the apartment,
Yeah,
which thinking about it just breaks my heart.
yeah.
Like he's got this fully furnished apartment, and he had to grease some wheels and give all his money and you know, to kind of take advantage of a suicidal woman. But he's got something.
And Polanski's attention to details is all over this movie. We feel like we really know every inch of this apartment. And,
What does the apartment not have, Cole?
well, it doesn't have a bathroom,
It doesn't have a bathroom.
which means there's going to be a lot of peeing in the sink. As his expat friend does during the party. He's in the kitchen
He's such
sink.
a prick.
He is. But, you know, that's what you'd be doing if you lived in that apartment.
That's
Because
what
you're
you
not
do-
going to go walk downstairs and around the bend.
Yeah.
Oh, and also this brings up the very important element of this film is that Tchaikovsky can see the bathroom window from across the courtyard.
So that's one of the first elements of this movie that seems to be defying reality in a certain way.
Yeah.
Which is he is early on seeing people just standing in this bathroom
And
for
looking
hours.
looking up at him,
at a time.
looking up at his window.
Yeah, and what you don't really think about till later is there's a scene very late in the movie where it's as if he is going to the bathroom for the first time because
Right.
it's shot as a reveal.
Yeah.
And that's quite a big suspension of disbelief, but it kind of works because you're already
And there's Egyptian hieroglyphs
And
that,
there's
that
hieroglyphs.
someone has painstakingly scratched into the walls of the bathroom.
keep in mind that Tchaikovsky did take that book of Egyptology from the friend of Simone Schul, so it is possible that he in one of his weird blackouts, because that's the other thing that's happened is after this break-in, I think it's after, I don't think it's before, he starts waking up and he is progressively becoming more of uh, a man in
Dislocated.
drag. For
Well,
one thing,
well, he
for one
go
thing.
well after. Well,
I
okay.
think he starts just being dislocated, but then
Well,
a
okay.
drag
So
element
after
shows up.
right. Well, so after his apartment is robbed, and after he has spent his first night with Stella, he may only spend one night with her, but after he spent the night with Stella, and he wakes up and he's in a sweat, and he goes back to the apartment, and of course it's still filled with Simone Schul's things, and he puts the nail polish on his middle finger.
Yeah, and
And to me, that's
he's
the moment.
awake. He's awake for that. He's not.
That's the moment when he's starting to cross over. And I love the scene where he goes into the wig shop and just buys a woman's wig and puts it on in the shop. And of course, the ladies that work there are a little surprised.
So it's 2016. I'm a millennial, and I can't not bring up that there's an element of transphobia to this, but I do think that it's in some way being kind of critical of society for being so against it. You know, I don't think Polanski is coming down either way on like what it means for if it's right or wrong for a man to dress as a woman. It's certainly not cool in this society, and him doing it is his first transgressive act.
Totally.
It's the ultimate.
And like Taxi Driver, he has a scene where he talks to the mirror, where he talks to himself in the mirror.
He says one line which should have been cut because it's mad dumb.
What is it?
He literally says, "I'll show them all."
Yeah, no, but the line that I thought you were gonna say is, "Oh, did you know I'm pregnant?"
Oh, I dug that.
I thought that was great. Great.
He pulls out these shoes and he acts like he's surprised to see them and responding
80
in
francs
his,
they cost.
in his very like kind of like ridiculous impression of
But
a
it's
woman.
but it's sincere. I mean, there's nothing insincere about his performance, about his character or anything. I mean, he really is.
So do you think
that's how he thinks.
Do you think Chokosky is like wants to be in drag and this is him being him? But I think there's
No, I think that this is all part of the confusion of assimilation because he's stuck.
So that is like a transphobic reading of it.
He's really stuck. I'm not addressing any phobia right at this point. I'm just.
I have to, Cole. I'm on Twitter. I have to do this.
No, you don't.
I have maybe 46 followers, and I need every one of them.
Anyway, I think that that he's desperate. He's really put upon. He feels.
Well, he's not just becoming a woman; he's becoming Simone Schul.
Well, and that's and that this movie also I feel like it has corollaries with Last Tango in Paris, too, where he has, whether he consciously knows it or not when he first moves into this apartment, this is it. He's closing it out. This is the end of his life, and I think that's more to the point. Just as with Leaving Las Vegas or Last Tango in Paris, where Marlon Brando rents this apartment where he's going to have these affairs with this woman, and they're not going to know each other's names, any of that stuff. And then, of course, he breaks all of his own rules, falls in love, wants to profess his love, wants to know her name, tell her his name, la la la, and it's the last. That's his last transition, and I feel like that is what's going on here, and that's why this movie's a psychological thriller because it's a character who is taking on a different mental state.
What made Simone Schul throw herself off the balcony?
We'll never know.
There's not a lot for us to really figure out. It's. She's like a bit of a cipher of like a warning to someone.
I mean, we can say what do we know about Simone Schul? We know she's an Egyptologist. She's lesbian.
She's a lesbian,
but she has she has gay friends. She has gay male friends because he goes to the party where the guy's clearly gay, and he gets that he takes the book that she left with him.
Do you know he's gay because he had that cool shirt on?
His apartment is so lavish.
It's his brother's apartment.
Oh, that's true. It's his brother's apartment. But yeah, I mean,
think the shirt. That's a very
and the way he talks. I think
it had some great buttons. I kind of want to try to find that shirt. That was a cool shirt.
Yeah. I mean, it's a classic, like, do I sound gay? I think he sounds a little gay.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, and like and more than just that they are
I think that those are
compare
all
those friends to his friends for one thing.
right. Well, exactly. Well, there's a
His
good,
friends are
there's a good
basic
point.
as fuck.
And also, I think that the paramour who he meets, who never got a chance to profess his love.
Oh, he's closeted as fuck.
See?
Yeah, duh.
Right?
Yeah,
Right?
100%. Oh, that guy's totally gay. The other one might have just been like
Yeah.
like rich, but that dude's he like tries to.
So there's all of these elements, all these layers in this movie,
Yeah.
and nothing's hit on the head, nothing's hammered. This isn't.
No.
If you were going to make this movie today, I don't know how anyone can make this movie because you'd have to you'd feel obligated to hammer home all these things.
I mean, you also have to make it a period because I think this is the benefit of people pushing representation and pushing their culture being less secondary is that you can just be these different types. You have more of a sense that this is still a like post World War II society that's just trying to put together some norms to function. Like these rules about immigration are built out of Europe destroying itself and of millions of refugees being thrown around. And so these animosities are deep seated, and these like national identities are what's controlling people's everyday lives. But people are like, hey, but I'm not this one thing. I'm not what you define as a French person.
There's so many corollaries that you can draw about black people in America. This movie
or modern Muslims in France.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This could be a series. This could absolutely be remade as a Syrian man coming to France.
Yeah. Yeah. But I've seen this movie a few times. I think this was probably the fourth or fifth time that I've seen it, and I've always I mentioned to you when you brought up this movie that it has a great double climax, and double climaxes are very rare in films. But what I realized is that it not only has a double climax, this movie has a triple. It goes for the trifecta. It's the ending of this movie is so incomprehensibly far out freaky. While you're watching it, you cannot get your head around what is going on.
It's so cool.
It's amazing. He gets hit by a car.
Yeah.
He gets completely full-on hit by a car.
I don't know how things work in France, but in America, when you get hit by a car, New York is a little different. You hit a pedestrian in New York, you get fined $200, even if their brains are all over your windshield. But the police tell this couple,
so terrible.
Hey, Freakonomics said it's the best way to murder in New York.
That's right. Yeah. I heard that.
This couple, their punishment basically is like, you know what? You have to drive them home. So
right. Yeah, they have to drive him home.
He gets driven home by the couple that were unlucky enough to hit him while he's walking in the middle of the street, kind of trying to kill himself. That's his first. I think that's a suicide attempt.
I buy that, and I think that if they had done the right thing and taken him to a hospital and stuck him in a hospital bed for a night, he might have lived a longer life.
Do you remember the scene where it's like one or two scenes before that where he checks into what I guess was a hotel room? I thought he was in a psych ward.
Because the padded walls.
Because the walls are padded.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're supposed to think.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is an interesting psych ward where he has keys.
Right.
To it.
Right. Well, yeah, he checks into what is obviously one of those hotels where it's just for assignations.
A fuck bunker.
Yeah, exactly. I've not heard that term before, Mike. The old fuck bunker.
Oh, that's just a fuck bunker.
Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, so yeah, the walls are
Wolf Trap Motel in Vienna, Virginia.
The walls are as soundproofed as $50 or in this case 50 francs will allow.
That's soundproofing is what that is.
Yeah, that's what that is. So the couple takes him back to his apartment, and he goes upstairs, and this is where things get super.
It's also clear in these last scenes that how to say it, he's the problem in a way,
right?
Like that.
He has.
There's not really a conspiracy.
No, the switch has completely flipped, and we now see
people be being dicks, but they ain't being culty. Because there's a scene that's like if you take his perspective for reality is like a human sacrifice.
Well, we get a clue of that. We get a little picture of that when he goes and he spends the night with Stella, and he tells her that he loves her, and she gives him the
She's
keys.
being
and
so dope. She's being awesome.
oh my goodness! No, she is a dream. She gives him the keys to his apartment.
I'm not gonna say I haven't like stumbled into a woman's either house or like dorm room when I was in college and like asked to stay there. Never in my wildest dreams would this best case scenario work out where she's like, yeah, totally. Great. You know what? I love you too. You know what? I made you eggs. You know what? There's croissants. You know what? I'll be back with more food. Oh, we can go out. Whatever you want.
Here's the key.
I love you.
Here's the keys. Leave them to the
Put
mat.
it under the mat.
I'll make a second set for you tomorrow.
And so, and I think he's like Polanski knows we're watching this, having seen Rosemary's Baby, and we're like, she's in on it too, dude.
See,
Get the fuck out of there, dude.
No, I don't think so. I think
that's my feeling. I'm like, yo, she's gonna fucking cut off your balls, man.
No,
get the fuck out of there.
No, this is all. I mean,
in Russia, but the sad thing is that it's not.
I
true.
don't know for certain, but I think that this is probably in the book. I think that this is the source material.
I agree with that too. I just think it's hard to watch his film and not like it's another level of
so he
to filter it through, which just raises the tension that much more.
So he's looking through her scrapbook.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't
and
get
he
what
sees,
happened.
so you know, how could you know? It's a childhood scrapbook, and there's pictures of Isabella Johnny when she was 8, but he sees some photo. Who knows? It doesn't even matter what photo
so
it
it
is.
doesn't.
He sees something, and that is when he loses it completely.
And you're just like, Doc, you had it so good right there. First of all, you got rid of your crappy dumb girl's apartment that's got teeth in the walls. Thank God.
Yeah, there he finds it. We didn't mention that he found a tooth in the hole.
Yeah,
in the
and then
wall.
his own tooth is in it for God knows why. You got this fucking gorgeous girl that's gonna make
tore
you.
it out himself.
He's gonna make you eggs.
And go buy you croissants.
Let's lay out his like last 6 months. Moves to France, gets an apartment, got a job, got some friends. They're dickheads, but you know what? You always dump your first friends when you move someplace. Find a girl, she touches your dick in a movie theater, doesn't go that great. You see her again at a church, still not that great. Run into her at a restaurant, dip around, come through the side door so she sees you, and she's like, "Hey!" She brings you home that night. You don't get hard, so you've lost so many chances, but now you just stumble back there and she's like, "Hey buddy, I love you. Like, let's do this, baby. Let's commit." And you're
He's not
like,
gonna have to worry about that crappy apartment anymore. And those crummy
apartment's done.
neighbors.
Your
Those
shitty neighbors
snotty,
done.
shitty neighbors.
Everything's perfect. And then you just sit alone and you open up a scrapbook and you pretend you see like her dad is your landlord or something.
This is why you never leave a new boyfriend or girlfriend in your apartment alone. By the way, like she made a classic. New Yorkers don't do that kind of stuff.
This is why you have a best friend who you text for a reality check, and you're like, "Hey, yo, I think my girlfriend might be part of a murder cult that my landlord runs. Like Y or N? Should I dip?" And they'll be like,
what he does to her apartment is so wrong.
That's an N. Like, that's rude to do if you're dating a murderer.
Not only
girl.
tearing up the scrapbook, he rips that apartment to shreds. He dumps
if
over the
trying to
dresser.
murder you, that's
and he
still
steals her
far.
money. He finds a stack of bills in the wardrobe.
Yeah.
Takes all the dough. So he's a thief too.
Yeah, that's he does like cross a line there. And it's that because it's like. Because the headline is going to be transvestite foreigner robs woman, jumps twice out of building. It's like that's a fucking dope headline.
Okay, so there we go. So now we're getting to the thing. So after he gets hit by the car, the couple take him back to his apartment. He promptly dresses up as
what's the ABV on this?
Simone.
It's like
6.8.
All right, well, it's doing good. This is one of my more shouty podcasts.
And jumps out the window just as Simone
jumps,
Schul
just like
did.
her, but not to be outdone.
No, wait a minute, hold on. We got to set up because there's a glass
canopy,
awning. There's awning canopy. There's a glass awning that he has to crash through before he hits the ground. He's jumping from the 4th floor.
I love the construction workers who are like
insulting him.
yeah, they insult him because he's wearing eyeliner, but they're also like they're taking it apart and they're doing it exactly the way I would be a construction worker. Is if you're dealing with something that's already broken, you would just throw it to the ground and break it more.
Right.
'Cause
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
fun.
Sure. Yeah. It's already broken.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It's like, why? If I'm gonna be a construction worker, I'm gonna break shit I don't need to break.
So he doesn't die. Shockingly, he survives the fall. His left leg is
He's a
all
survivor.
It's all kind of fucked up. I love Shelley Winters when she comes because of course all the tenants come and to
Well, there's a
witness
great
what's
sequence
happened.
where-
And her no, but Shelley
Yeah.
Winters' response as an actor, her reaction to looking at him, she has her head sideways like you would have in that kind of situation when you're looking at something and you don't know what it is, and so you have your head sideways like because you're trying to figure it out. You look like a dog, when they cock their
I was
head.
gonna say, yeah,
you're
you
trying to
would.
figure out, is that a bone sticking out?
Yeah.
Is that some of his brains or was that just already there? Anyway, that's the
You've
situation.
seen some I think we've both seen some crazy shit, like of people being fucked. I know you at least saw a dead lady
Sadly.
at Macy's a while back.
I did.
I've come
Yeah.
across some like car accidents where like
Have you really?
oh man,
no.
there's one where all I knew is I was driving on the road and then I was on the side of the road. This isn't a car accident. I was
Right.
driving the road and then I'm pulled over to the side of the road. I completely blacked out on me pulling over and stopping.
Uh-huh.
But what had happened was two cars in front of me,
Head on.
one got like sideswiped and then like one flipped like
Ugh.
4 times,
Oh no.
and people flew out.
No.
And it's late at night.
Mm-mm.
It's a pretty busy highway, and I get out of the car and I basically wake up and I've pulled my car over.
Yeah.
And I'm holding my phone.
Yeah. What road is this?
This is on the way to Nashville. I believe it's 81.
Okay.
And it's late at night, and there's people in the street. There's people like on the side of the road, and yeah, it's hard to describe like what being in shock is if you
Yeah.
you haven't been in it. And so I'm just imagining like Tchaikovsky has pushed this trauma onto all of his apartment mates.
Yeah.
And there's a sequence before he jumps which kind of portrays them as being in like a grand like opera, and it
Yeah, they're
mirrors,
in they're
Yeah.
all sitting in opera seats,
Yes.
and they have like little balconies, and everybody's there. Stella's there.
Stella's there.
Everybody's laughing, and they're all waiting for him to jump. They're cheering him on to jump.
because
In his imagination.
Polanski's great. It precisely mirrors the opening shot, which is of all of these closed windows.
Uh-huh.
And it's this elaborate panning shot, which, the more like I'm working on sets and moving cameras, the more I'm like, that is a hard ass thing that those camera operators are doing, and the pulls that they're doing. Like it's
yeah.
a beautiful shot that they're doing, and he mirrors it. But instead of these windows closed, now they're open, and they're just these assimilated people mocking you and like
it's
laughing.
so terrible.
But it's also you're the entertainment. Like this is his highest point. Is he's dressed as a woman, and he's leaping from this window. And is it something like?
Well, and it makes me think. The only time that we see Tchaikovsky happy, I think, is when he's as a woman. I think that the scene that we're talking about, where he's in the mirror and stuff, and he puts the clothes on and everything. I think
he's legit trans.
I think that's the best he feels. That's the best we ever see Tchaikovsky feel.
Yeah, there's two things.
He's much more comfortable.
One is like for him to assimilate is to just take the identity of the person who lived there, because it's all right. So
it's readily available.
So this is way too much theory to jump into an hour into a podcast, but
Is this an hour?
Is this an hour? We're at an hour right now.
Lordy, we're
probably gonna cut out the first 2 minutes.
Have we broken our crash record?
No, I think that was over an hour. I don't know, but there's this thing called the Mimetic Theory by Rene Girard, which is that no one really wants what they really want organically. You project your desires based on people who have something that you want. So it seems like Tchaikovsky has projected his desires onto the woman who had this apartment. Because there's one thing that he wants. He wants housing.
Right.
You know, he's living out of a suitcase, and the one thing that he wants is a home. And so he's learning, and he's like kind of perversely interested in what the woman, how the woman lived who was in this apartment.
Yeah.
And he becomes sort of psychotically obsessed with her world.
Yeah.
And becomes more and more like her to the point of becoming a woman in a sense, and killing himself precisely as she did. He's trapped in this sort of Rube Goldberg machine of assimilation.
See, there's a crash corollary here too.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, because he's re-instigating. He's reliving the event.
Yeah.
He's reliving the cataclysmic event of her jumping, and to the point he has to do it twice to get in her same shoes, as it were, because he still isn't dead at the end of the film, but he is, however, in traction in the same hospital, perhaps even the same hospital bed as she was.
Why does he do it twice?
Because
I mean, is it more than just like he didn't?
He's trying to kill himself. He is trying to kill himself, and he didn't succeed. So he's got
he one ups her in a certain sense.
That's true,
know?
and
He
also
proves his
and also it really gets, I think, at the heart of what suicide. A lot of times suicide has to do with, which is where you're taking out a revenge. Somebody, the girlfriend breaks up, and the guy thinks, "I'll show you."
That is a whole form of revenge in the East, is to slit your throat on your enemy's doorstep.
Right, and just make it as messy as possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he's going for. He's going for the ultimate revenge.
You're gonna have to replace this door. The
implications are so horrific, and it's something that has been repeated throughout history for so long. I mean, it's something that people do.
Revenge suicide.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking the other day about the crisis of incremental genocide that we have in this country with cops killing black people, and I think seriously.
No,
I think
I don't know if you know this. I manage a social media account called Decarceration. Please like and follow us, decarceration.org.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
I think, I mean, even if I was black and I had an encounter with a cop, I think I would have to just fall on the ground and play like I was dead. They're still gonna come beat the shit out of you, right, but maybe you don't get killed.
It seems right now like there's nothing you can do besides just immediately stop.
Just fall on the ground and pretend like you are dead, and maybe you'll survive. It's the best shot you have. Maybe.
It's so infuriating every time, people bring up these things of look at this neo-Nazi with an M16 on the streets of Ohio, point his gun at a cop, and the cop talk him down.
Look at what happened with the terrorists, the Chelsea bombing thing. They shot him with beanbags. You think if that guy had been black, they would have shot him with beanbags?
If that guy was black and disputing a parking ticket, they would have shot him in the head. The outsider, it's yet to be seen in human society if a society can exist without hating outsiders. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's yet to have been proven that we can function without this brutal tribalism.
Mm-hmm.
I think this movie's getting at this, and if I'm like anybody in this movie, it's unfortunately like that douchey fucking American playing brass music who can't get in trouble for his fucking life.
Right.
Who uses the same line as the American landlord, which is like, well, I know the superintendent of police, so I won't get in trouble for this.
Yeah.
When
the neighbor comes to complain because he's really blasting this terrible, horrifically, not even, subjectively. This is objectively bad music.
It's embarrassing he, owns this album.
Oh, it's so terrible.
Abysmal.
And the neighbor comes and
it's not even Glenn Miller. It's fucking garbage.
Oh, it's so garbage. Yeah, and he tells the neighbor,
marching band shit.
I'm friends with the superintendent of police, so
and
shut the fuck up.
he's just Cole, just like us white dudes are real good at just fucking bullshitting that privilege. We just slide on everywhere. And so yeah, I'm confused about who's supposed to be French in this movie, and I wish it was. I wish people that were French would like. I wish there was multiple languages in it. Like, I do dig that dubbing that's happening. I think that's very interesting.
I think it's interesting, but I think,
but I think,
well, look, anytime he walks into a cafe or a bar, you know that the workers there are French.
Yeah.
And you said something before we started recording about when he whispers to the bartender that he tips copiously, but it doesn't work out so well.
Yeah, so yeah, he's learned this like greasing the wheels thing about just giving everybody a giant tip, and he's like, and he whispers something, and I was like, all right, he's asking for a blowjob, right?
Right.
I was like, like clearly he's just
going for it now.
He's a slide, and he's trying to end. The guy's like, this guy wants to buy a gun. This and he calls, bugger. He calls him a bugger. I
and then the guy that walks over with
the
like American flag tie.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Oh, you didn't know? Yeah,
the
guy who comes out and calls him out. He's just some guy in the bar, another expat, and he comes over and he's furious. So yeah,
that's where this movie did not translate to America.
So yeah, if that's for sure. Because if you were in Paris in '76 and you wanted to get your hands on a gun, you were going to get your ass beat.
So for real,
just for even having the thought.
That's so fast. I hate that I'm so like indoctrinated by America, where that's so weird to me. Like for real, like it's like you'd get called out for being a punk like that, for asking. That's nice, man. Like
and if he had gotten the gun, he would have shot himself, and that would have been it. So,
yeah, you think he's just trying to shoot himself?
Yeah.
So is this an anti-gun control thing? It's like, we just give them guns, man. They'll just take themselves out.
I can't make that stretch, but
No.
it's an interesting scene.
That's the thing
in
with
the movie.
Suicide is studies have shown that states that have laxer gun control laws have higher rates of suicide completion, because people who are not as serious with suicide basically can't don't go through with it. But a gun is binary. It happens or it doesn't.
Yeah. Well,
it's a large spectrum with suicide.
And I feel obligated to mention that we have lost more U.S. soldiers since 9/11 to suicide by far than we have in the actual wars.
Not to like make everything relate to a movie, but like there's an outsider thing there too, It's like, because it's like, yeah, I don't fucking know what they've been through, and who does?
Well, and of course they're the outsider when they go to war to occupy these countries. They are the outsider, but they're just walking around with the gun that says, "I call the shots," literally.
Yeah, and then they come back, and we let them sit first in the airplanes, and we salute them, and
we pretend like honor the troops. Oh, the troops, and meanwhile they get no.
It's not whatever we're doing at the Super Bowl and at airports doesn't seem to be what they need.
No,
let's just put it like that.
Yeah, if you have like a support the troops bumper sticker, you're a sucker.
I mean, not even to bring up like the validity of the conflicts that they're at, which I feel like will weigh on you. Your ability to rationalize what you've done, but if we do lots of things respecting them, but still there seems to be something not working. There's a lot to be unpacked there, and we'll be doing it for generations.
Well, I'm just curious to see how many episodes we go before we do another Polanski film, because I have a feeling that his name will come up at least.
I'm really interested in watching more Polanski. You know what thought I had? I honestly find him more interesting than Stanley Kubrick. Shoot me. I think
I can see why.
I think he's subtler. I think he's dealing with things that I can more immediately engage with, and I think.
Well, let's also not forget the fact that he's still making films.
Sure.
And so I should mention that he is in pre-production for a film called Based on a True Story that's due out next year, that stars his wife, Emmanuelle Sagnier, is written by Olivier Assayas, and also stars Eva Green. I think it's a two-hander. I think it's Eva Green and Emmanuelle Sagnier.
Well, let's save it for when we engage with Polanski again, because needless to say, there's many reasons why he's an outsider, and his films like continue to like engage with that. And I think for like I'm sure we could talk about at length. There's lots of reasons why he's like looking in on different aspects of life. And yeah, I'm down, man. Like it's interesting stuff. And this movie, I think it's like this beer with this podcast. It's a perfect pairing with Rosemary's Baby.
Well, this is our introduction to October. So happy October, because I have a feeling that we are probably going to be doing more Halloween appropriate films
October's gonna
this
be
month.
Spooktacular. Most def.
So thank you all for listening.
We've definitely planned next week already. We're a lot of foresight here.
Yeah. You guys are gonna love it. Don't forget to like us wherever you can. Find us, listen to us, share us with your friends, talk about us, all that stuff.
We're on the podcast platforms. Please like us on Facebook,
SoundCloud,
Stitcher, Twitter. Well, let's get our Twitter game in line. We'll up the Twitter game. It's gonna be great.
And please remember to turn your cell phones off when you're walking, driving,